Just the other day when we spoke about DNA and so on, you know, we didn't get around to just some of the other interesting things I wanted to mention about DNA and the progress that we're making and how exciting it is, I think, for the future. So
Yeah.
it's one of these things where if you look at the specifics and so on, we look at the enormous contribution that AI can and will make to a particular field. And I so first of all, talk about protein folding, I think is the term that is used. Anyway, a couple of guys won a Nobel Prize just recently for the work that they've done in terms of protein folding. So um, the just to try and give a little bit of perspective of kind of what it is. Um, so understanding how proteins collapse onto each other or actually form the three-dimensional structure in terms of human DNA. So everything is kind of built up of proteins. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
Well,
So the
you're
link
telling me.
between the link between DNA and protein. So the human genome provides the instructions for creating proteins, which are encoded in the sequence of DNA via genes, obviously. However, the genetic code is only meaningful if the proteins it encodes fold correctly into their three-dimensional shapes.
Hmm.
So correct folding equals functional proteins. Misfolding leads to non-functional or toxic proteins, often resulting in diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, or cystic fibrosis, and so on. So that is just so, in other words, the better understanding we have of how proteins um, are built, how they fold, what its correct sequence is, obviously, the better we can kind of deal with a whole bunch of illnesses, diseases, and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
So anyway, so AlphaFold is the company, um, or is the piece of software rather. It was developed by DeepMind from Google, um, that made this groundbreaking contribution to biology by solving the decades-old problem of protein structure prediction. So, a couple of major accomplishments there is predicting nearly every known protein structure. So, AlphaFold has provided accurate structural predictions for almost every cataloged protein, including the entire human proteome and proteins from 20 additional key organisms like E. coli and yeast. Um, the massive data set is freely accessible through the AlphaFold protein structure database, which is accelerating research worldwide. So you can understand why E. coli and yeast, so many things kind of stem from those simple organisms.
Yeah.
And E. coli and yeast are so, um, I mean, it is everywhere. So
Yeah.
it would really help a lot if we understand those things. But anyway, so the um, researchers have used AlphaFold to advance drug discovery and vaccine development. For example, it was instrumental in projects focused on malaria vaccines and cancer therapies, as well as in designing enzymes that break down plastics, addressing both healthcare and environmental challenges. Because obviously, proteins, throughout nature, it plays a very important part. Um, then if we look at, a kind of like what the impact of this is going to be on AI. So I can't remember. I did see a number somewhere of, to kind of do this without AI, to kind of figure out the protein folding would
Yeah.
have taken, I don't know how many years to do
Yeah.
one or a few of these things. Whereas, you know, as we just saw, the whole of all of the and again, it would have been nice to have a number to this, the number of proteins in human and then also a few others. But anyway, so the idea is that um, the ability to predict protein structures with atomic accuracy, that was previously a very labor intensive and slow experimental process, demonstrates the potential of AI in solving fundamental biological problems and driving innovation. So, um, beyond proteins is also, looking at complex molecules. Latest iterations of AlphaFold have expanded to predict the structures of other critical biomolecules such as RNA, DNA, and protein um, ligand complexes. So the capability enhances research in synthetic biology, drug design, etc., etc. So why is that so important? One of the things, the moment that you see things like RNA, you think COVID vaccine, mRNA, etc., and you start wondering about how effective these things are, because
Yeah.
um, we know now about all the issues that have been encountered with the vaccines, and more information is coming out with regards to even some older vaccines and some of the potential health problems that caused.
Yeah.
So think if we are at a point where, with a cheek swab, we can determine your DNA, know what you're dealing with. We have access to this technology. Um, we know which of these things to look for and what to create, that you can almost, on an individual basis, create vaccines,
Or
drugs,
supplements. Yeah.
supplements, and all of those things. I think it is phenomenally
Yeah.
exciting. So obviously, you know, 8 billion people on the planet. By the way, have you seen that number is disputed
I haven't.
quite a bit?
But I'm not
Yeah,
surprised.
it's
I think it's
quite
very hard to
interesting.
count everyone.
It is very hard to count everyone.
Yeah.
And actually, the discrepancies that some people think that they are, is like phenomenal. But anyway, so obviously, we are a long, long way away from everybody on the planet having access to that kind of um, healthcare. But if we manage to, through these technologies, help start solving some of the more common things. Now, whether some of the more pervasive illnesses that we're dealing with, like Alzheimer's and diabetes
Yeah.
and that sort of thing, we do know that lifestyle is a component to that. I mean, that's also been proved and so forth. But if you think about the number of different types of cancers that there are,
Yeah.
and the massive effect that they have on people, if we
That
can just
actually,
make.
speaking on that, have you heard the cancer doctor on
Yes, I have.
Stephen Bartlett's
I,
Diary of a
I, I
CEO?
have.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that main
And
clip is that it's been proven that high sugar, high
yeah,
sugar increases cancer whatever it's called,
Yes,
growth, and low sugar decreases cancer tumor growth. Like it's just
correct.
anyway, carry on.
It is again one of those
Yeah.
things where the lifestyle
Mhm.
or the diet or the nutrition is probably playing a much bigger role than we knew
Yeah.
or anticipated up to now. But anyway, doesn't matter. You can just see that having the ability to much quicker now to use AI to get down to
Yeah.
those very, very detailed levels
Yeah.
um, is going to have a massive, massive influence and effect.
Yeah.
If we think about things like, you know, the beyond proteins, thinking about the other uses potentially, um, in terms of our understanding of biology, first and foremost, I think that we understand so little yet. Um, we were just talking about how little we understand. We thought that the first Homo sapiens was, I don't know, came from somewhere in Africa and it was around, I don't know how many years ago, 30,000 years ago, or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, can't remember the details. But there's more and more and more evidence now showing that we are so way off with that number. And I
Yeah.
wonder if some of the tools and techniques that are used to date some of those things um, will also be proven to be ineffective
Yeah.
or maybe
That
even completely wrong.
I mean that's it seems to always happen. So things like in criminal cases from the 60s, they weren't able to check DNA against a database, whereas nowadays they can, so they can start solving crimes from however many
Yeah,
years ago that were unsolved because now they have this DNA ability and all of that. So it's just
correct.
interesting how these things affect everything, not just health or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that. I'm also excited for kind of the environmental science. There's a lot of environmental science which at the moment looks a little bit like like some parts of medical science where there are other incentives driving the narrative.
Yeah.
Um, so, for example, creating certain proteins that can consume plastics.
Hmm.
Okay, that is definitely a possibility, uh, and that will obviously help solve some of the issues that we have, with plastic and plastic waste and that sort of thing. And I think that we will be much more capable of doing it in a responsible way. And what I mean by that is it's not fixing one problem and creating a few others
Hmm.
in its place. You know, so anyway, I think it's fascinating. For me, it's one of the more interesting things about, like I said, the use of
Yeah.
AI um, and the speed with which these things can be done. There's very recently another study has been done to use AI, and I can't remember the details now. I just read about it this morning, and I didn't actually go to the trouble to save it. But where AI has been trained on, I think if I remember correctly, 93,000 cases of different types of cancers,
Hmm.
and it is improving the diagnosis
Yeah.
by, I can't remember the kind of figure that was given there, but it is jaw dropping in terms of, okay, cool, this thing now, because it has seen so many images of
Yeah.
these type of much better than um, cancer specialists can do in a much shorter period of time.
Yeah, it's amazing. Have, have you
It,
heard
yeah,
Dr. Mark Hyman is doing something similar in the US with function health, where I just heard him talking on Max Lugavere's podcast, who Max Lugavere
yeah,
also does a lot of research into this because his mother got
correct.
Alzheimer's at a young age and he wanted to find out why and what happened. And
Yeah,
at Dr. Mark Hyman's company, Function Health, I actually just checked while you were talking about AlphaFold if they use AlphaFold because it sounds very similar. And he was talking about how he wants to make this data available to everyone affordably.
yes.
So someone in Africa can go on the system and upload their genetics and then get given feedback about it based on their millions of people that they've had upload all of their genetic markers and they have all this data. So it sounds like it's also AI. I don't know if it looks like it's not AlphaFold or they don't mention that they use AlphaFold, but I think it's the same thing where at the moment it's only in the US, but they have all of these beta testers, people who've signed
Yeah,
up for it, that I think it costs like $40 a month and you get 2 blood tests a year. It might be more than that, but they do the blood test, they upload all your biomarkers,
wow.
all your DNA, everything, and then they give you feedback based on the thousands or however many inputs
Is
they're
that
getting
only
from
available?
people.
Is that only available in the US at the
Yes, so
moment?
I
Okay.
signed up to their wait list and I sent them a message just saying, when is this going to be available in the UK? Because I'd be interested. Because I feel like this is something that we
Yeah,
talk about a lot. I have no control over my own health and body here. Like I feel like I have to rely on someone telling me, okay, you can have a blood test
yes.
now, and this is what we say about your blood test, where it just feels like being able to have all that information and have a database where you can own the information would be amazing.
No, absolutely. I'm definitely also going to take a look at that and get a better understanding. And I think that in all of the different disciplines, you're going to see these systems that, you know, all basically the same, some kind of AI, but the training data will be very specific,
Yeah,
you know. So to help that particular speciality or that specific speciality and kind of come up with answers. And I'm kind of looking forward to when all of these things kind of come together,
yeah,
um, and that we can leverage off all of these things and the interactions between them.
yeah,
So in other words, if I have, I don't know, if I have pain in my left knee, that I don't just look at the osteo part of that, but that the endocrine system, for example, that the information, and these guys will also build the AI systems, that kind of take all of these things into
yeah,
account, where these things can actually start talking to each other and we can get um, a very personalized health experience
yeah. It'll be so
without having
interesting.
to rely on somebody's agenda.
Interpretation. Yeah. But also the
Yeah,
interpretation of a small
correct.
set of data that they have
Yes.
because they don't have all of the detail. I mean, I told you I downloaded my 23andMe genetic markers or whatever. It's over
Yeah.
10,000 pages of just lines and lines and lines of all the
What?
DNA things. So I just think, like, if I could upload that into some kind of system and then it tells me this is
Mm,
which is kind of what the Stride thing was telling you to do. You can download that data, upload it to Stride, and then it'll give you the same kind of detail which I got for doing my swab with Stride. But
yeah.
yeah, it's just really interesting. And I think Mark Hyman's point was about it becoming more and more affordable as people are doing more of this research because he said I can't remember what the value was, but it was like $300,000 or more than that it would have cost you however many years ago.
Yes.
Today it costs you $400 to do the
That is
same
correct.
thing.
Yeah.
So it is becoming more accessible, but at the moment it is still for kind of a higher level. I mean, it's not accessible to anyone.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not accessible to everyone. Look, anyway, I think it is, you know, other than just thinking about the AI in terms of, chat GPT and having it help me do my homework and that sort of thing. Um, it's like there's a lot of work being done in these other areas, which I think that pretty soon we're going to start seeing the potential benefits of that. And I think the time that it's going to take to from discovery to actual product, that time is going to come down. It feels like there's and maybe it's just kind of like the echo chamber that I operate in, but I don't think so because more and more you hear. I mean, Robert Kennedy now in the US is shining a very bright light on food and healthcare and
Yeah.
you know the the general state that the US and the rest of the world is in. So it's not just the echo chamber that I live in terms of trying to take more personal responsibility for my health and not just kind of accepting what the mainstream narrative is and so on.
Yeah.
But it does feel to me like we in a bit of a revolution with regarding that, and a revolution combined with this new tool set and people that have been wanting to make a change
Yeah.
for the better. Um, you know, I think that is just going to contribute to products coming to market a hell of a lot quicker in the future. And that is really exciting.
That is exciting.
Yeah, there's so much gloom and doom going around,
Yeah.
that for a while we kind of racked our brains to try and come up with something positive rather than the negatives to talk about. But it feels to me like just in general, AI is kind of doing this. I don't know if you saw the Tesla launch, I think it was just over a week ago,
You mean the landing?
where, well, never mind the landing,
Uh,
with catching that, but, where
okay.
the robo taxis and so on, and then where Optimus, is it Optimus? Yeah, Tesla's robot, the humanoid robot,
Hmm.
instead of just having it there on the stage performing a few tricks, if you will. Elon just said, okay, cool, there they are, go and interact. And they had one as a barman, and I know there are people saying that maybe that thing was controlled by a human. I don't think so. But I also saw video clips of people playing rock, paper, scissors,
Oh yeah.
which was not scripted. It was not, these are just people that were invited. So we see all of these phenomenal advances happening at the moment. And then just looking at how the um, the awareness is out there in terms of, listen, in order to leverage this, we actually have to look at our power supply because without power, we cannot run these massive data centers and so on. So, kind
Yeah.
of going from AI, and I call that is kind of like backwards to, for quite some time, there's been this concern about, you know, power generation, burning fossil fuels. We must go. Wind and solar is, in my opinion, clearly not the solution.
Hmm.
Um, it's unpredictable, it's unreliable, et cetera, et cetera, and it's not cleaner than fossil fuels anyway. But with this kind of hunger for compute power and data centers, there's now people are now really starting to look at nuclear power in
Hmm.
all seriousness again. And that's another field where I feel like there was a lot of stagnation in terms of research and so on, because there were too many regulations that kind of prohibited that. And now all of
Yeah.
a sudden people are realizing, well, we need that. China is building a bunch of them. I say a bunch, I think 50, something like
Okay.
that. Um, could be wrong. Maybe it's 35 or
Mm.
50, but it will be done by, will be built and in operation by 2050. And a few other countries have also now kind of said, okay, cool. We know the kind of problems that Germany is kind of experiencing because they shut down their nuclear power stations and coal power stations. And anyway, so I think that we also see that in the price of uranium is kind of skyrocketed. So that means that despite the popular narrative, there is a demand for
Yeah.
uranium as fuel, and that will only be because people are building nuclear reactors, which is all very, very positive because that has been a much more efficient way of providing power,
Hmm.
which then kind of drives all of these other advances in technology. And the ultimate goal of that is to improve the quality of lives of regular people like us. You
Yeah.
cannot do that without these things in place and so on. So all of these things kind of coming together, talked about DNA and the importance of that in a very, very microscopic level and so on, kind of right back to kind of like energy and the need for energy. And these are really exciting things. It's
Yeah.
going to take a decade or two to really filter down, but at least there's some positive stuff to look forward to.
Yeah, there's hope.
There
There's
is.
hope. So I highly recommend that podcast with Max Lugavere and Dr. Mark Hyman talking about the medical side of things and the health side of things.
I
Um,
definitely will. I made a note
I had two little
to.
anecdotes that I wanted to
Yes.
end off on that have nothing to do with DNA. Actually, I should tell you, I did have my call with the dietitian
Okay.
from Stride, and it was
Yeah.
actually incredibly positive. She
Nice.
did not give me any grief for not eating fruit and vegetables, and she didn't
Okay.
try to sell me anything. Um,
Wow.
she went through my reports with me. A lot of the time, she said that actually my diet is already covering some of these deficiencies, so I don't need to do anything. There were one or two where she said she would recommend taking a supplement for something. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, it was a positive feedback session and no
Wow.
sales pitch,
Fantastic.
which was good.
That's
Um,
really nice. Yeah.
yeah, and then I wanted, just because we spoke about software recently, I wanted to tell you about this experience I had with a software company.
Yes.
Um, so I think I told you a few weeks ago I ordered a cheap blood pressure monitor on Amazon
Oh yeah.
um, because the pharmacist told me my blood pressure was high. So I've been just recording it every now and again, once a week or something. I check my blood pressure and it's been fine. But I downloaded an app off the App Store where I could record it and compare it over time. So it was a really simple free app where you just input
Mm.
your blood pressure values. And it has the ability for you to take a photo of your result or like use your camera and then it pulls out the numbers, but it
Yes.
doesn't work on my monitor. But there's a little button that says, "Is it not reading for your monitor? Click this button." And so I clicked it, and it opens an email that's already pre-populated with what's your model number, um,
Wow.
and it asks a couple of other questions. And then you send off the email, and immediately I got well, it was probably within 12 hours, I got a reply from them saying, we've just purchased this monitor and we're going to program it so that it does read the results. I just thought that was really interesting because it kind of shows,
Wow.
from having worked in a software company in my previous life, that you try to um, build for every eventuality, for every
Yeah.
possible device and everything. And you just can't because there's so many. So it's quite a
Correct.
nice way that they're doing it, that as soon as they realize there are people using another device, they'll build for that device. So I thought that was
That's
quite cool.
that's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my last anecdote, which is a really silly one. One of the things about being on the carnivore diet that they don't tell you. bone marrow bones can give you splinters. I have a huge splinter in my
Oh
thumb
my word.
from a bone marrow bone. And I just thought that's something that they
Wha-
don't tell you.
Oh my word. You've got to talk to your butcher. That's, I think but yes, I have noticed before that sometimes there are these little shards. You've got to be quite careful
Yeah.
about them,
I was
yeah.
obviously just really going in for that bone marrow because I normally like just take it out with a spoon, but this time I was holding the
Oh,
bone and then I got a great big splinter in my thumb.
oh my word. Was the marrow good at least?
It was really good.
I actually reminds me I haven't had marrow bones in quite a while, probably a month. Uh, they are delicious.
Very good. Just be
Okay,
careful of
now
the
I'm hungry.
splinters. Okay,
Now,
cool.
now I'm hungry. Uh, Thanks, Ellie.
Thanks, Oman.